Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and good morning. It is Wednesday, October the 1st, and it is Shutdown Wednesday. The government is over. It's done. It's all stopped but the crying at this point, except that's not really how it works. I made a little joke this morning on social media that obviously I wasn't going to be able to do a podcast because the world is no longer functioning. Because our government had a shutdown. First it was looming, and now it has been completed, and so the imminent shutdown has taken place. And all of you woke up this morning with the power on at your houses, and the trash collectors picking up garbage, and everybody doing the thing that they normally do. There's going to be some less traffic when you guys decide to drive into Washington, D.C., and that's like this much of the country. And the rest of you are going to experience your day like normal. You won't even experience any change whatsoever. And even my friends in the federal government, if you guys have a essential job, you're going to work. And guess what? Tomorrow's payday, and you're going to get paid. You're going to get paid your regular salary. And the next payday, you'll still get paid. You'll get a partial pay. Yeah. Now, I did recognize that in honor of Government Shutdown Wednesday, our friends over at Rumble changed something, so the settings didn't work out. And so many of you are just now trickling in for our live show because we didn't appear as a listed program for the morning. I don't know why that is, and neither do you. I'm sure it's totally accidental. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that they don't like what we're doing over here. But we're going to carry on anyway. The program is going to cover shutdown and why it's Trump's fault and why Trump is really bad and all of the things that I found fun in the media. They went deep into the archives. They found out not only is Trump responsible for the government shutting down and being a troll and being a meanie to Hakeem Jeffries and Schumer and others, just like we saw yesterday. But he's also responsible for weather and flooding. And he's also responsible for people who built hospitals where it could flood. I kid you not, that is a legit story right now. And because I've decided that I just enjoy sort of the torture of mainstream media personalities and TV presenters from CBS, I found another good Scott MacFarlane clip. You know Scott MacFarlane, he likes to talk like this. He has that thing. He's got really long arms, like strangely long arms and kind of gangly fingers. I bet he would have been a good piano player. Instead, what he does is play the propaganda organ. And he's very upset because we got rid of a government watchdog group that all of you know has done so much good work that the government continues to be exactly as it was before the watchdog group. So funded or unfunded, somehow investigating yourself doesn't actually do anything. James Comey's indictment is a threat to free speech, and you guys are going to be shocked to find out that the highly capable, super competent new FBI director leaked things to his buddy. And we now have some breaking exclusive information about the January 5th, January 6th pipe bomber unveiled, uncovered by none other than the great Julie Kelly. I'm being very facetious right now. So we're going to get into all that. All right. So we've got a bunch of stuff to cover, some fun things, some source documentation that was released. Before we get into any of that, since we're talking about government shutdowns and the inadequacy of our federal system, why don't we talk about my friends over at Cove Pure? Yes, water is one of the essential functions that we see from our local governments, and they can't even get that part right half the time. How many of you people are drinking poison out of the tap? I know that in our area, it tastes like sulfur. It tastes like someone boiled broccoli in it. There are places I've lived that have had significant amounts of arsenic. And depending on where you live, you might find that there's lead, heavy metals. There could also be pharmaceuticals and fluorides and all kinds of other crazy things, metals and toxins and nastiness coming straight out of your tap. That's why my kids are drinking out of a Cove Pure machine when they go to bed at night. We've set this up in their bathroom so they can have unlimited access at kid height. They just push the button and they can fill up their cups or their water bottles, and they can get it cold or they could get it hot if they were getting wild. I don't know why they would get hot water, but maybe when it gets chilly out, they'll do that. They can make their own teas. It's a really nice system. And that's mostly because we don't trust government here in this house. That's a standard thing. Check out the folks over at Cove Pure. It's covepure.com/KYLE, covepure.com/Kyle. You're going to save $200 right now while supplies last on their machines. They are less expensive than the just sort of passive Berkey drip that we have downstairs. So that's kind of cool. It gives you a really nice looking machine that does all kinds of cool stuff, like gives you specific amounts of water. It gives you the temperature that you like. You can actually adjust it for hot or cold. You can get it tap water or, lukewarm, whatever, if you want as well. And then the last thing is the health benefits. It's an obvious fix to removing contaminants. It's going to get rid of lead and PFAs and pharmaceuticals, you name it. It's actually very easy to set up. It took me less time than the passive system that I had to pump and prime and do all this other kind of stuff. You literally just put it in, push buttons, and then wait for it to do its thing. There's no plumbing. There's no drilling. You just plug it into the countertop, set the temperature you want, and then push a button, and you get water that tastes like water. Shocker. You guys can take back control of your family's health. You can drink water the way it was meant to be drunk, which is from covepure.com/KYLE. And I'll give you one last little pro tip on this. If you are a Patriot Cooler owner, and many of you are, they all fit under there. The 40 ounce we checked, the major, it fits. The 30 ounce, and then obviously all the smaller ones do as well. So it works really well with other stuff that we sell here or we advertise for. Check out my friends at Cove Pure. There is a link in the show description. All right, let's get into Shutdown Wednesday today. I'm feeling sort of unnecessarily happy because of this, and you'll see why. It's the shutdown on a Wednesday. Yeah, okay, so here it is. Look, this is the graphic. Everybody got a cool graphic. Closed for business or shuttered government. The government shuts down after Trump and Congress fail to reach a deal. It's almost like the people who write these stories don't know anything about how our government works. Trump has nothing to do with this, whether they want to plan it on him or not, whether or not he's going to have meetings with Hakeem Jeffries and be a big meanie head. It doesn't matter. Like, we can go and read the Constitution and see who's responsible for a budget. I don't know why we think the president is responsible. I don't know why we act like the president is supposed to go out there and pitch the budget. That's the way they do it, but that's not what's supposed to happen. And by the way, didn't we have a dude telling us, there was this one dude, Smithers, something or other, Smithers. He was working for Mr. Burns, and he said that we were going to have no more short-term funding. We were going to get single issue, one line item or one particular department funded at a time. Isn't that what was supposed to happen? What was that guy's name? He's like, he has some kind of position of power in the GOP. Oh, it's the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Here's November 2023 Mike Johnson, not the same as today's Mike Johnson.
Committed to never being in this situation again. I'm done with short-term CRs. We're resolved. So what that means is you're going to see in the beginning of this next year, we'll be walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're going to get the appropriations process running on time as it's supposed to be under law. The Budget Control Act of 1974 has very specific provisions in there on how this is to be done. Congress hasn't done that for as long as we can remember. But we're going to get back to that because that's good stewardship. The American people deserve it. And the debt situation we find ourselves in necessitates that. So, but overall, with the CR, as our leader just noted, we have broken the Christmas omni, and I have no intention of going back to that terrible tradition. So there won't be a Christmas omnibus. As somebody asked me in the hallway a little while ago, will there be many buses? We don't want any buses. We're not going to do any buses. Okay, we'll deal with that in the lame duck, and I'm going to plead, I'm going to urge the Senate to do their job. As Leader Scalise noted, they have not done that. This is Chuck Schumer's fault. It is not the House Republicans that we're in the position where we have to have a resolution to continue funding the government at the end of the fiscal year. We did our work. We passed 12 appropriations bills through the committee process in record time. We put them on the floor. Almost 73% of federal funding has been passed through the House. We sent it all over to the Senate, and they've done nothing. They did not one bill, and they would not negotiate with us on the top line. So here we are. We loathe CRs as much as anyone, but this is the situation that the Senate Democrat leadership put us in. It would be political malpractice to shut the government down. I think everyone understands that. And so we hope that this will get done quickly and we get everybody back home to their districts to work and to the campaign trail.
This was the conservative play call. We don't normally like what's called a continuing resolution, a CR, but in this case it makes sense because if we push it into the first quarter of next year, then we have a Republican-controlled Congress and President Donald J. Trump back in the White House will be able to have more say over the funding decisions for 2025. Now, that would have been an easier thing to do, but then we had circumstances outside of our control. We had these emergencies that are required. So we had, as you know, a record hurricane season. We had Helene and Milton, and they just did massive destruction across our red states, frankly, in the southeast and the eastern side of the country. And then we've had farmers who are in jeopardy of permanently going under. They've had 3 lost years in a row because of Bidenomics and inflation and other circumstances outside of their control. And so when you cobble those two things together, there's a desperate need for that aid, and that's what adds another $100+ billion to the bill. And that
Listen, it's not our fault. There was weather and there was another guy and we weren't in charge. And even though we weren't going to do it, now we're going to do it. And it's actually the fiscally conservative play to spend $100 billion more money because people need money. And, we have money to write into it. We're going to take your money and give it back to the other people with the money. Smithers is gross. I mean, is this guy ever, do any of them ever just get the sense that they're going to be held accountable for their words? No. I love a government shutdown. I love it because you all realize the government does almost nothing for you except infringe on your liberties, spend all your money, do all those crazy things. Remember, what was Joy Reid saying on yesterday's program? We played a little clip and she was like, these people want to go back to when there was no income tax. They want to go back to when, you could just run a business with no regulations and you could just give all your money when you died to your kids. How terrible is that? Sounds awesome. Sounds like a time when the government wouldn't have its hand in my pocket before I can reach in there myself. But remember, government shutdown. The Republicans are missing a golden opportunity, in my opinion. Okay, I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat, and I generally don't care who wins because I think they're the same. But how dumb are you not to claim this and be like, guess what? We shut down the government. We're going to use this opportunity to remind Americans that the government doesn't actually do all that much for them. Except they can't do that because they're all part of the same game. And the game is we have to act like what we're doing is so critical and necessary. And at any moment, if you fail to recognize that we're doing this thing for you, you might just throw us out on our asses and we may not have the power of the federal government. This country was not set up to be run out of Washington, D.C. on purpose. It was meant to be run from your state houses. In fact, your state houses were supposed to have a significant amount of play and authority over what the federal government does. And we should have 2 amendments that actually ensure that. And I wonder if any of these people actually have read the damn Constitution. And more importantly, have they read the Bill of Rights? It's not actually that hard. It's been around for hundreds of years at this point. Let me just read you what CNN wants us to know about this government shutdown. Where do they stand? The government has shut down. The federal government shut down at midnight. Well, does that mean that people didn't go to work? No. Does it mean that the things that happen that are essential functions of a government, did they stop? No. Are the national parks all closed? No, not all of them. Okay, got it. Okay, so they failed to reach a deal on the funding packages. Republicans, remember how you frame it. Republicans needed 7 Democrats in the Senate to join them in order to pass a spending bill. That sounds like 7 Democrats are deficient. And if they really cared about this and they really wanted government funded, wouldn't they say, hey, a-holes, work with the majority and get it done? No, they do not do that. What's affected? Every government shutdown differs. Why? Why does it differ? Why don't we just shut it all down and just experience it? It would be the same. But typically, functions that are critical to protect lives and property and deemed essential will remain open. Previous shutdowns have seen canceled immigration hearings and delayed federal lending to homebuyers and small businesses. Why in the world is the federal government involved in home buying? Oh, it shouldn't be. Why is it involved in funding small businesses? Oh, it shouldn't be. There's a whole bunch of these things that we could just cut out writ large like a cancer. Will they do that? No, because they want to be able to control you. How the government shutdown may impact you. From CNN staff, the U.S. federal government shut down. It could significantly disrupt travel. All the ATC people have to show up to work. So do the TSA. So does the FBI. So does the DEA. So does the ATF. So does the DOJ. So do all the functions that you think are supposed to be there. And by the way, they're going to get paid. You get paid in arrears, right? Like you do 2 weeks and then you get paid for the 2 weeks prior to that. So they're still going to catch a paycheck for the next, 2 pay periods. All right. Typically, functions that are critical to protect lives and property are deemed essential and remain open. The real question of every single federal government shutdown should be, why is it that our federal government, at the enormous amount of money that we spend and the continuing amount of debt that we incur, why are there non-essential functions that are part of it? Why? Can anyone explain it to me? Why is every single person at the FBI considered essential when I used to work there and go, hey, I know for a fact that I can do my job without you because I do it without you every day. I don't even know what the hell you people do. There was this ongoing joke that the people that live in the what's called the mail room, many corporations, many government agencies have this. They have a room where mail comes in. But in reality, it was like 3 black ladies and 1 black man, and it's not relevant of their race, but that's who was there. That's who was working in that office, in the Washington field office. And I called it the nail room because there was this old guy who kind of reminded me of like an Al Sharpton type character. He just kind of sat there and riffed with these ladies who were younger, useless, very long fingernails, and they would be painting their nails anytime that I ever walked up there. And I walked up there dozens of times over a period of years. Dozens of times, they were always doing the same thing. The nail room, totally useless. They still get to show up to work for some reason. They're considered essential. Nobody knows why. In any case, I relish a government shutdown because all you get to see is when they quote unquote stop funding it, almost none of you are going to experience anything. That doesn't mean there's not going to be fear porn. That doesn't mean that Caitlin Collins is not going to try to jam up Smithers. Here's Smithers doing what Smithers does, kind of simpering on a leftist news station.
Make that first point at the White House yesterday after the meeting y'all had with the president and with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. People, as you know, people who are here in the United States legally have never been eligible for the Obamacare subsidies, for Medicare, for Medicaid. So what exactly are you saying that they're trying to do when you talk about giving free health care to them?
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so when we passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, we had Medicaid reforms in the bill. You and I talked about it on the air. What we did was to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. There were a lot of people on the program who were enrolled in the program who were never eligible to be there. Medicaid is intended for eligible U.S. citizens, not illegal aliens, not also U.S. citizens who are able-bodied workers, like young men. So we passed the law. The president signed it into law. Democrats voted against it, of course. And it's been wildly successful. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which is the neutral arbiter of all these things, released a report a few weeks ago, earlier this month, and they said, you know what? The bill has had its intended purpose. Premiums are coming down, listen, because 2.3 million ineligible enrollees had been kicked off of Medicaid, which helps to save the program, prop it up. And $185 billion has been saved already in fraud, waste, and abuse.
What you did was narrow the eligibility for certain people to get access to the ACA subsidies. What they want to do is undo the changes that Republicans made in that. But basically, wouldn't that only affect people who do have legal status, people who are refugee seekers here in the United States, asylum seekers here?
Those are two totally different issues.
Listen, what we did was we fixed the glitch. What if we fixed the entire glitch and said the federal government has nothing to do with healthcare and that's why it shouldn't cost? I just saw a post yesterday that was over on social media that made me laugh. It was a guy, he's an actor, and he said, I needed to get an x-ray. And so I asked what it would cost me out of pocket. And the cost was $390 because I have health insurance. And then I asked them, what is the self-pay cost? And if you have no insurance, the cost is $60. Can we just think about that for a moment? Because the federal government is part of the reason why that exists. If there is a possibility to grab money, then that's what these healthcare companies do. Listen, I straight worked for a group. It was called Acadian Ambulance Service. That's not the most prestigious job that I've ever held. But I worked for Acadian Ambulance Service, and the entire business model, as I could understand it, as a guy who was out there working in the field, was that they billed the federal government over $1,000 an hour for my time as a paramedic, transporting fat, sick people. I'm just going to be totally blatant with you. The people that are using our healthcare system at a very high level, overwhelmingly are very sick. And many of them, if not most of them, are morbidly obese. And I know that because I needed to have like a pretty strong back and pretty good grip strength because I was constantly moving huge, fat, sick people around. That's not me trying to be mean. I'm just telling you, there's a problem in this country, and our healthcare is out of control. A lot of it is because people have not taken personal responsibility. They think somehow the government is supposed to save them. I forget when you work in that field, by the way, as a medic, you forget that there are 65 and 70 and 75-year-old people that are totally living on their own 2 feet and healthy and productive members of society. It's really hard to remember that because when I would deal with somebody who'd be in their late 50s, they would be a human disaster area and they were near death regularly. And you'd see them and you'd go, oh my God, like 58, it's so old. But I knew that it wasn't old because those people were younger than my parents. And then I would look at them and I'd be like, at 60, you're basically done with life. No, just if you choose to be done with life. And we have a lot of Americans that have basically said, the government will take care of me. I'm done. I'm not going to eat healthy. I'm not going to exercise. I'm not going to make good choices. I'm just going to eat slop and garbage. And I'm just going to float along and somebody will take me to my appointments. There'll be a Kyle Seraphin or similar who will come in. Some healthy, able-bodied guy will drive me to my doctor. at $1,000 an hour, and the federal government will pay for it. And that's what my ambulance company did. All of what we called inter-facility transfers were billed at crazy amounts of money. By the way, I made about $15 an hour doing that. $15 an hour for a fairly competent, high skill, and certainly like if something bad were to happen, it would have been all on me. The company made $1,000 on top of my efforts. Now, yes, they had the contract. That's part of it. They had the billing department so they could get the money. They had the ambulance system. So I don't begrudge them the money that they were going to make on it, except that they were making it on all of our backs. Because the entire business model was, how can we pull money out of the federal government to serve our interests? It's a very short-term goal. Because at the end of the day, you're saddling your kids with incredible amounts of debt. Oh, man, I have to show the chat right now just for a second. The chat is saying that I needed a high lift and a come along. So that's like a winching system. We actually had an ambulance setup that was referred to as bariatric medicine. It was a bariatric transport system. It was almost like a flatbed. They had removed all of the ambulance stuff out of it. We would actually connect a Kevlar rope on a winch that was locked down at the front of the ambulance, like up near the cab, and we would winch up people that were too heavy to be rolled up by normal people. Normal people being me. If somebody was over, I can't remember if it was 300 or 350 pounds, we would use what was called the bariatric truck, which amusingly enough was number 747. I thought that was really funny. The 747 would come in and pick up the super fats. And those people were huge. I mean, I moved patients that were over 500 pounds. We had a guy that was well over 650 pounds. How they were still alive and feeding that carcass was incredible. But I kid you not, and I would always get on there, and because I had a background in air traffic control, I would let them know that my call sign, which was Medic 9 usually, be like, Medic 9 has now become Medic 747 Heavy. And people would just be like, you can't say it on the radio. Huge people, really unhealthy. I'm talking about this because we're discussing this to claim that Republicans are falsely pinning Democrats with wanting to give free healthcare to illegals. I don't think that's what's going on here. And also, what a silly debate. We're going to get strapped in on whether or not we're going to give it to illegals or American citizens. You heard Mike Johnson just defending America needs to give healthcare to people who have earned it, who are American citizens. Why is the federal government involved in giving healthcare to anyone? It's so crazy. I thought we were going to make America healthy again. I thought we were going to actually try to remove some of the problems with long-term illness, which also, by the way, is not the federal government's anything. It has nothing to do with our federal charter. In any case, let me read this story because it's fun. It's from ABC News. Republicans falsely claiming Democrats want to give free healthcare to illegals. All right. It says, as the nation careens towards a government shutdown. Too late, we got there. President Trump and the top Republicans, including J.D. Vance and Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, have falsely accused Democrats of demanding free health care for illegal aliens. They put it in air quotes, like there's not such a thing as an illegal alien. Leaving the White House on Tuesday morning, Trump claimed that Democrats want to be able to take care of people that are coming to our country illegally, adding that they want to give them full health care benefits. And after a meeting between Trump and the Republican leaders and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, it was meant to hash out their differences and avert a shutdown. Vance had made the same claim. And so everybody was very, very upset about all this, including one of our favorites. Here's Maxine Waters. They had this Democrat gaggle where all the Democrat lawmakers went and stood on the steps of the Capitol and then answered questions, mostly from people that were going to own them because the people that are doing it are kind of dumb. Here's Maxine Waters. She's not that bright. She does seem to be dodging the issue on this.
Do Democrats want to prioritize the health care of illegal aliens over a government shutdown? Because if the government does shut down, American
Excuse
employees are
me,
going to be furloughed.
stop it right there. We're not prioritizing. What we're doing is saying simply we want to keep the government open and we want to work with the Republicans and have a bipartisan agreement to keep this government open, and health care is at the top of our agenda.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. We want to save lives. We want to make sure that health care is available to those who would die, but having the help of their government.
So you're good with the government shutdown, even if it means giving health care to people who aren't American citizens?
Well, you keep that's what you're pushing on. What you're trying to do is you're standing here and you're trying to make me say that somehow we're going to put non-citizens over Americans. Quit it. Stop it. This is the kind of journalism we don't need.
No, I'm just
you're
asking
divisive.
questions.
No, you're not.
Yeah, no,
you're
that's
being
what-
divisive. No,
No, I'm
please.
not.
You don't need to ask that question. You're just trying to get controversy here. You're not going to get it from me. We want to save health care for all people. Thank you.
For everybody. We need to get it for everybody, she says. Why? What is that? What part of the Constitution says that we're supposed to provide health care? We're supposed to provide like a mandatory service of the federal government that comes from individual private labor. Why? I don't know. But don't act like that's not what you guys are interested in. Here's the 2020 presidential debate for the Democrat candidates. They were being asked about their plan for the country and what sort of healthcare plans they might have and whether or not it would include illegal aliens. Check this out.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants. Okay. Let me.
Yay! Illegal aliens should get health care because we want to save everybody, but we don't know how we're going to pay for it. We're just going to make stuff up. By the way, this is not a sentiment that is uniquely qualified for Maxine Waters. It's for a bunch of people. A bunch of people think this at every level, running for office. Democrats think health care is a human right. And what is a human right? Is it really something that you're entitled to? If you're born, then you get health care? How do we square that with reality? There are plenty of people who don't have health insurance. Why would it be a human right? Can anyone answer these questions? I just, why are we not asking that? Like, hey, what makes it a human right? How do you enforce that? How do you define a right? Like, you have the right to speak, right? We're going to talk about that in a minute. You have a right to say things. You don't have a right to be free of consequences of those things. You might get hit in the face if you say something dumb. You're not supposed to get hit in the face, but you don't have a right not to get hit in the face because, like, it can happen. We know it. So then what happened? They violated your rights? Maybe. I don't know. This is Scott Jennings on CNN. This idea that everybody deserves health care, it sounds really good right up to the point when you realize that also involves compelling the service of doctors and someone has to pay for it. It's the reason why these people are so juvenile with their understanding. It's like, we need fairness. It's like, who told you the world was fair? What parent failed you is what I want to know. This woman seems very young, by the way, to be running for office. I guess I can't have it both ways. I can't say that I don't want ancient old people that are decrepit and their brains don't work anymore to be in charge of the government and then also get mad at young people who want to run. But isn't there like a happy medium? Isn't there like a power space where you're like, I'm not stupid. I know things, but also I'm not too old. There is a power range and maybe it's like 30 to 60-ish something. Can we not have like 25-year-olds come out there and tell me dumb things that they don't understand because they don't have enough life experience? Anyway, here's one of them trying to do it with Scott Jennings. Kind of funny because he's smarter than all these people and all he does is have to ask questions. They answer the questions. They just sound ridiculous.
Everyone deserves health care.
Even illegals?
Every single person in the world deserves
Just for the
health
record,
care.
as a candidate, you're for illegal aliens getting Medicaid.
I think everyone in the world deserves
That's a
health
yes.
care.
That's a yes.
I'm such a
That's a Democratic position.
It is a yes, but
yeah.
It's a Democratic
Everyone in the
position.
world
Illegal
deserves
aliens should
healthcare.
get Medicaid.
But I mean,
How is it controversial?
How is it controversial?
How is it controversial to think they don't want someone to die in the hospital because they can't afford
Who do you
it?
think pays for health care when undocumented people show up at a hospital? Who pays for that?
We all pay for it.
Exactly.
including
We all
undocumented
pay
people
for
because
it.
they actually contribute.
That's the point.
No, not the undocumented people. They don't have the highest salaries. They're not the ones that are taxed at the highest rate. Are we serious right now? Who pays for it? Us. That's the reason why it's so crazy. We have universal health care in this country. They will not turn you away, no matter who you are, no matter how unable you are to pay for the services that go to a hospital. And then guess what? The next people all pay that bill. Oh, how do you know that? Because I've seen the billing. Because I used to work in a hospital. We would bring people in that were homeless all the time. And we would be like, hey, can you make a $5 contribution towards the cost of your hospitalization? You are using the single most expensive method of doing medicine in America. And they'd be like, no. Can you hand me my bag? I'm going to go outside for a minute and have a cigarette because I can afford $8 a pack cigarettes, but I can't afford $5 to offset the cost and keep me out of collections for this medical bill that I'm incurring, which is going to be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And I'm not even too sick. I can even walk outside and have a damn cigarette. Anybody who's worked in this system knows how freaking broken it is. And guess what? Since that guy doesn't pay anything, and I'm thinking of a very specific dude who was really upset. He wanted his bike brought into the ER. I remember seeing him. Why do you remember that guy so specifically? Because he came in 7 days in a row. We had the same clown, not that sick, with allergy-like symptoms, roll into our emergency room where we treated people who were actively dying of heart attacks, gunshot wounds, serious ailments where they were, apneic, children who couldn't make it to the children's hospital that were falling apart and dying right there because of some acute problem. And that guy's life was a disaster. And so he came in because he was bored and he wanted a meal. I heard emergency room physicians say, don't feed the trolls. And I'm like, what is that? And he's like, trolls, they live under bridges and they make demands and stuff. And you're like, oh, trolls are homeless people. That's what you're saying. That seems insensitive, right up to the point where you realize people came in because they wanted a sandwich, and they drove in on the wambulance, which is what we used to call it. They got transported in because they wanted to get closer to the homeless shelter, which we were closer to than where they were. And we also had cab vouchers. This is not good stuff, folks. When healthcare is a right and everybody gets treated, we all pay for it. Exactly what Scott Jennings said. It's very interesting. And it's all our fault for being meanies. And they do say it, by the way. They say it overtly, right out in front. They got no problem saying that. All right, let's talk about people that we don't hate real quickly. My friends over at Patriot Coolers. The website is patriotcoolers.com. The promo code Kyle will save you 10% over there. Their stuff is built for Battlefield. I don't know exactly what that means, but it's super durable. And it actually stands up to, let's say, working with kids. I've got both of their large coolers. We've got their soft coolers. I've given them as gifts. They're fantastic for that. We also keep one on the desk almost at all times. I'm almost always drinking either coffee or water out of one of these things. Wherever I go, it travels with me. Guys, check them out. They fit nicely under the Cove Pure system. They're well thought out, well designed. They're patriotic in nature. They got, 13 bars on it, and they got 50 stars on most of these. They say Patriot, not Yeti or Stanley or some other nonsense or Igloo. You're none of those things. So check them out. Support our friends over there. If you're in the market for a quality outdoor piece, this is like a one-time big investment. You're going to hold on to it for a long time, and you can use it all the time like we do. I literally keep our cooler in the back of our minivan because we're constantly driving around because it's still freaking 90 degrees here on October 1st in Texas, America. Patriot Coolers is the website. Link in the show description if you guys want to see the Kyle Seraphin collection, which is just like some of our stuff. They're going to actually add a Kyle Seraphin logo if you want one that's branded with our logo on the cup. But patriotcoolers.com is the website again, and the promo code KYLE will save you 10%. They also help out vets who are having issues with mobility. Not homeless vets per se, but people who are like, hey, I've got a house, I've done all the right things, but it's really hard for me to get around inside because I'm in a wheelchair or I've got a missing limb. They go out there and they fund that stuff. Good people, good folks. Check them out for sure. Let's talk about government shutdown even further because it's still fun. And we got a picture of not my favorite guy. This is Russ Vought, or Vote, I guess it's pronounced. Government shutdown is Trump and Congress's fault. And during this time, they're also going to do something extra dangerous and bad. They are going to defund a federal watchdog council. This is one of the things, and his picture popped up with the story about it. The Trump administration is considering pulling funding for a federal watchdog group that is effectively stripping counselors for the Council of Inspectors General, or SIGI. Removing the council's funding will mean further hollowing out of the federal inspectors general, the internal government investigators and watchdog groups that are supposed to root out fraud, waste, abuse, and misconduct. Can we be really, really serious for 1 second about that? The government investigating itself and finding wrongdoing with no ability to affect it is stupid. It is a waste of our money, and it always has been. I have complained to the Office of Inspectors General. Nothing happens. I have seen the internal investigations. They recommend action that doesn't have to be taken. When the government investigates itself, even if it finds wrongdoing, it generally excuses that wrongdoing and then nothing happens. It doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. It's just a terrible execution. And why do I not much care for Russ Vought? He's the guy that fired Steve Friend from his little think tank because Steve was friends with me. Steve was explicitly asked, our Friendly Friday Steve Friend was asked to stop showing up for Friendly Fridays and stop being friends with Kyle Seraphin. And he chose to lose his job with Russ because Russ is a weak man. That's my take on it. It's very personal. I will be right up front. My bias is high. I don't care for this guy. I don't care what he does that's good. I find him to be kind of a morally detestable person for making that push and for kicking my friend out of a job. I think that's weak. But not maybe, or maybe the same weakness as we see from this dude, Scott McFarlane, equally polished, different sides of the coin. Here's something kind of gross. He's going to go out there and defend the federal's inspectors general, and they've never done anything. Was corruption stopped under Biden? No. Was corruption stopped under Trump 1.0? No. Was it stopped under anybody ever? No. Our federal government continues to grow completely out of control, which is why I'm always excited about a shutdown. And if these people are crying, then I'm psyched about it. Listen, I look who is squealing when pressure is applied. And if it's left-wing propagandists, I'm totally down with it. Let it be so. Here's Scott MacFarlane in a polished voice. It's Wednesday.
Hey, good morning. It's Wednesday, and it's Scott MacFarlane. Forget the government shutdown. Put that aside. There's another reason we're waking up to a very changed Washington this morning. There will be fewer investigators on the beat, effective immediately, looking for waste, fraud, misconduct, and abuse by federal employees and members of the Trump administration. And even if the government reopens, those investigators may not be coming back, or that help for investigators may not be coming back, because as of midnight last night, the Trump administration has moved to stop funding something called CIGIE, which I agree is obscure, CIGIE. But those who've been involved with CIGIE can tell you they are the lifeblood of federal inspectors and those who watchdog, bird dog the government for misconduct and the administration for misconduct. Here's the website for CIGIE, against the Council on Inspectors General on Integrity and Efficiency. They are critical to supporting the dozens of inspectors general across the government to ensure there's no misconduct.
A system is what it does. The purpose is what it does. What does it do? It doesn't do basically anything. Here's the White House statement on it. Inspectors general are meant to be impartial watchdogs, investigating and identifying waste and corruption on behalf of the American people. Unfortunately, they've been corrupt, partisan, and in some cases have lied to the public. The American people will no longer be funding this corruption. That should be the answer for almost all federal government. Less of it is more for us. In other words, less that we fund, more money in your pocket. If you are, in fact, a conservative person and you want to be financially independent from our government, the best step is have the government stop funding things that you've never heard of. If you haven't heard of it, it probably doesn't affect your life. And they don't do a great job of it. Why is it that we constantly have this nonsense? Now, this didn't stop the theatrical, ridiculous sort of presentation of Democrats. Again, if you've got CBS out there crying about CIGIE, then you're probably going to have Congress members, men and women, I'm going to show one of each, that are out there decrying the work of Republicans. Again, I dislike both of them. I got no problem punching at either one of them. Mike Johnson, Smithers. How about somebody on the other side of the aisle that we don't like? Here's Debbie Wasserman Ramen Noodle Schultz talking about something. Is it just me, or does she look really, really rough as the shutdown comes in? What sort of funding did they cut? They cut something. I'm generally a fan of women not wearing makeup, but I also think that somebody should like self-select whether they're going to put a camera that close in their face when they haven't slept in a month or whatever it is. Or maybe she slept on some concrete steps because she was trying to get close to the homeless. Listen, I don't want to punch at people's looks very frequently. I'm only going to punch up to people that have a lot more power than we do. But she voluntarily put this out into the public. This is not like some lady that I walked by in the store and I went like, ugh, hey, you're gross. This is a lady who said, hey, look at me. I'm Debbie Wasserman Schultz with ramen hair. Check out how weird I am. I think she's having a stroke in one eye too. Like one of her faces droopy. This is theater. And it's like, politics is show business for ugly people. Proving it right here. If you're missing this video, you should watch this video because it's really gross.
Hey everyone, Debbie Wasserman Schultz here. Just came off the House floor where Democrats in the House tried to get Republicans to hear our legislation that would keep the government open, lower healthcare costs, end the cuts, and save Americans' healthcare. And Republicans ignored us and would not let us even take a step forward. They gavelled in. They gavelled out. Democrats are here ready to work. Republicans are on vacation, and they will own the shutdown and the increased healthcare costs. We're not going to stand for it.
Nailed it. Way to go. Yeah, no, I agree. The Republicans should own the shutdown. They should be like, government sucks, so we're shutting it down. We're not going to fund it, and then we're going to go through with a machete, and we're going to cut out all the things that we can do. You guys in the chat are seeing it. Like, I don't know what's going on with that right eye, but it's like she's got the pin on one side and then right above it, this eye is droopy and pink and weird. And so maybe she's having, like, You do have a choice. No one's making you stand in front of a camera and then broadcast it to the world. So you are within sort of the public sphere where I get to ask questions about that. So that was a woman who's in rough shape, and she's very upset about the government shutdown. Maybe they cut her health care. Maybe they did, right? Remember, it's not about health care. Republicans falsely claim that the Democrats want to give free health care to everybody. And then she goes on and talks about how it's about health care. Okay, then we can go to someone who needs a different kind of health care. This is Tim McBride, aka Sarah McBride, who needs some mental health care and probably should be checked into an asylum. He's doing a theatrical presentation of where are the Republicans at? Let me run around with this staged nonsense. I'm going to look underneath tables and chairs and see if I can find my colleagues, even though we waited to the last second and then shut down this government. I think the Republicans should own it. They should just say, yeah, we just didn't want to be around Tim McBride. He's gross and weird.
We're barreling towards a shutdown. All my Democratic colleagues are here. I'm going to go search for my Republican colleagues. Republicans, y'all know there's a government shutdown. Republicans, anyone here? Is Mike Johnson in here? Let's see if some Republicans are in here. Are there any Republicans in here? Hello? Republicans? No Republicans here. They left a mess and left town. No Republicans on the train. Republicans. Have you seen any Republicans?
What is this? Seriously.
Are any Republicans here?
Somebody spent a lot of time putting this together.
Republicans.
So you've got this goofy theater kid. I'm actually going to turn down the volume on this because it's so bad. This is a goofy theater kid who was goofy in college and effeminate, and I don't know. I assume he's gay. I'm guessing here, but I think that was the case that we got when we saw him speaking. And now he dresses like a woman, and he's running around doing bad acting.
Are any of you Republicans?
Are any of the Republicans here? It's so strange. Anyway, but it's Trump's fault. Remember, it's Trump's fault. He's the bad man. Also, Trump is really mean because he indicted Jim Comey. Now, I don't think that James Comey is a very sympathetic figure. And this story, which comes from NBC, where they're crying about it, is not something that moves my heart whatsoever. I think James Comey was very responsible for a lot of the evil things. The thing that I think is scary about Jim Comey is the stuff that he did was actually legally authorized by the agency that he worked for. We're going to find out. You guys are going to learn, I think, that the deputy director and the FBI director have a broad range of things that they can do, and that leaking to the media is not a thing that they are actually going to be in trouble for. You can't actually leak to the media when you have the authority to give out media information. I think that's what people are going to find out. So again, this goes to my supposition that the government can be shut down and we should all cheer, no matter who you are. And if you do it, if you're the ones who are like, nah, we're not funding it, you own it and you get really proud of it. Here's Rand Paul. He was sitting on the floor of the Senate, and the votes came in, and he voted against funding with this little CR, this appropriations bill.
No.
No. Perfect. Exactly right. Don't fund the damn thing, okay? Because you're going to end up with more nonsense. I'm going to read you the story because this is NBC crying about what happened to Jim Comey, and the headline says that the case jeopardizes Americans' free speech rights. What? These are retired judges. Isn't it always funny how the retired types come out of retirement simply so they can go out there and tell us how upset they are about what we're doing now that they're no longer involved? In their letter, former federal and state judges have warned that, quote, rights and liberties of every American are in grave danger today as President Donald Trump continues to corruptly abuse the power of his office by directing the United States Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to target his critics and his perceived political enemies for investigation and criminal prosecution. I do agree with that, but not specifically because Donald Trump. It's just because those agencies exist. By the way, they're going to still be open when the shutdown happens. All Americans have an obligation as citizens of this great country to speak out against this unprecedented attack on our freedom. Where were you a-holes when they were doing this stuff to Christians or parents or people that talked about COVID, or when they were following around people who were in your own Democratic Party and decided that they didn't like what you were up to? Remember? We have people like Tulsi Gabbard who crossed the aisle simply because the system sucks. It is a terrible system, and we all fund it at tremendous, tremendous cost. I'm going to show you evidence of that. There was a little hearing where Matt Taibbi, who I'm a fan of, just, full disclosure, went and talked about it. And I think that's pretty fantastic stuff. First, I want to just tell you, you might hear an ad from our friends over at Spotify. So here it is, and it's a good reminder that if you're listening on X, if you're listening on YouTube, if you're listening on Rumble, which was a little screwy this morning, make sure that you guys have liked our program. It does boost us in the ratings, and you can also follow us over at KyleSerafin.com, which is our locals channel. Guys, we're going to do the local show tonight. For those of you that are interested, you're going to get locals call in tonight because tomorrow I'm going to do an interview with a guy named Gary Melton, who's a Green Beret or a retired Green Beret, and he's at Paramount Tactical, and I told him I would do it. So do that. If you're following somewhere else, make sure you check us out over at KyleSerafinShow.com, which is our Spotify. It is the best way to watch. So if you can see, like, I don't know, Debbie Raman Wasserman Schultz, if you want to see her hair, then you can check it out. Check that thing out. And then again, make sure you guys are liking us over on the video platforms. I see you, YouTube. I see you all. I know you guys are there. Make sure you're liking and sharing and subscribing. Let's bump over the top of that 14,000 subscribers over on YouTube if you guys don't mind. That could be fun. So the local show is always at 8 p.m. If you're listening in the morning or if you're listening and you're like, holy crap, I have the ability. 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's when we do the call-in show for all of our subscribers. And it's whatever you guys want to talk about. You can tell me how much you love government shutdowns, or you can tell me that it's really bad and really dangerous, or you could tell me that the United States faces major problems because of flooding in hospitals and Trump is making it worse. I kid you not. It's Trump's fault for the weather and the fact that hospitals are built in low zones where it could flood. Is that real? Let me give you the strongest argument for shutting these things down. The strongest argument comes from Matt Taibbi talking about something really simple. I'm going to get back to this story about the hospitals because this goes along with healthcare is somehow a right, and we're all supposed to be able to pay for it so that illegal aliens can come here and get healthcare that we all pay for. For some reason, we owe it to them. I don't know why. But how about the things that we were overtly paying for that never did anything good? And if you guys look in the background of this clip, what you're going to see, there it is a friend of the show. Her name is Sonia Labasco, and she is one of the senior people over at the Federal Air Marshals National Council. She's a suspendable. She's a stud. She's one of our only ladies in the group of suspendables. And look at her over Matt Taibbi's right shoulder. It'll be closest to me on the screen. He's talking about quiet skies, which is one of the victories. Notice, we shut down quiet skies under the Trump administration this time. No terrorist attack that have happened on planes. Why would that be? Oh, probably because there was never a chance that they were going to stop terrorist attacks. This is the reason that you de-weaponize government. When you shut it down, nobody notices.
Former Hawaii Congresswoman and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard was placed in a surveillance program called Quiet Skies by the Transportation and Security Administration. She was subject to intrusive searches, followed by bomb-sniffing dogs, and trailed by 3 federal air marshals per flight. To cover the story, I contacted the TSA. They no-commented the main question about the truth of the story, but added, as if in mitigation, quote, simply matching to a risk-based rule does not constitute derogatory information about an individual. That's bureaucratese for, we can't say if Mrs. Gabbard was in the program, but if she was, don't draw any conclusions because we do this even to innocent people. Before Quiet Skies was discontinued by this administration, it was a symbol of the steep decline of federal enforcement since 9/11. The government spent $200 million a year following up to 50 people a day for a program that in its history never once led to an arrest or thwarted a single terrorist act. Despite its demonstrated inutility and grave civil liberties concerns, it was refunded year after year because this is what our government does now. It gathers information on its own citizens as an end in itself. Former Hawaii Congresswoman and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard was placed in a surveillance program called Quiet Skies by the Transportation and Security Administration. She was subject to intrusive searches, followed by bomb-sniffing dogs, and trailed by 3 federal air marshals per flight.
All right. It doubled back. Right. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about a person who was holding a top secret clearance due to her position in the military, who was a presidential candidate for the major party in the United States. And we were wasting $200 million a year for 20 plus years doing what? Nothing. There was zero value in any of this stuff. That was Matt Taibbi. You guys will know him from the Twitter files. If you guys know, he was also referred to as the Dennis Rodman of Mongolian basketball at one point. When I first spoke to him, that was the first thing I said to him. That hearing went on to talk about other things, including the reasons that people got profiled. Why did they get profiled? Why were they being watched by our government? Well, in the same way that you hear judges crying about free speech and the ability to go out there and communicate, and Jim Comey is a martyr for all of us, they seem to forget that there was some speech that they were not a big fan of. particularly if you talked about masking, particularly if you talked about COVID vaccines, particularly if you talked about things that were not part of the orthodoxy of the left-wing government that was actually trying to run things. And when I say left-wing government, what I mean is just government, because government leans left, because the ice cream cone licks itself. A system is what it does. That's why the process is the punishment. It's on purpose. It's not an accident that these things are not fun to be a part of. Here's Taibbi in a discussion with Senator Moreno talking about, what about masking? How do you get on a quiet skies list? Thank God that it's being thrown out now. It seems like a nasty stereotype, doesn't it?
Those of us who had some level of like, hey, this is just stupid, said we're not going to wear a mask, and that put you on a no-fly list. That got you banned from flying. Could you explain that?
Actually, Senator, it's worse than that. My understanding is that just for supporting a group that protested the wearing of masks on airplanes, you could be placed on a no-fly list or on a watch list by the TSA. That's in addition to the J6 category, which included people who were just suspected of traveling to the national capital region.
Do you get it? By the way, do you see Sonia Labasco back there? She's nodding. She's like, that's right. My boy is getting it done. That's all true. The craziest thing we found out about the TSA's watch listing of people is that you didn't actually have to participate in January 6th, which, probably shouldn't have resulted in a government watch list. You didn't have to do anything. You literally had to be on a flight that flew you into the national capital region during that time period, and you could get nominated. And we found out, which we've done shows on this. You can go back into the archives and look at them. Our discussions with Sonia Labasco are very illuminating. Go back there and find out that we had, with our dollars, a federal air marshal supervisor's wife being followed, despite the fact that she was handicapped and physically unable to walk even into the Capitol. And the fact that she just showed up in the capital region on that day was enough for her to get a full team of air marshals, 3 full paid surveillance agents to sit with her just in case she did something dangerous, which she never had any indication she would do. That's why they never caught a terrorist. All right. And in the equally stupid and illogical and nonsensical things, this CBS News story is fantastic. Again, I'm showing you the headline. At least 170 U.S. hospitals face major flood risk, and Trump is somehow making it worse. I don't know how you get to this level. This is the reason why I was making fun of Scott McFarlane today. This is his agency saying things that are so deranged. This is a great example of TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome. This is a decades old. They're talking about Peninsula Hospital, which is in Louisville, Tennessee, apparently. This is a decades old psychiatric hospital. I'm going to take a deep breath and read that one more time. It's in Louisville, Kentucky. Sorry, it's in Louisville, Tennessee, or maybe it's Louisville, Tennessee. It's decades old. So it sounds like it predates the Trump administration. And it was built at the edge of a river. An intense storm could submerge the building in 11 feet of water, cut off all access to roads, according to sophisticated computer simulations of flood risks. Are these the same ones that are doing the climate change, I wonder? Aurora, a young woman who was committed to Peninsula as a teenager, said the hospital sits so close to the river, it felt like a moat, keeping her and dozens of patients inside. A woman with mental illness felt like a river that was rolling by, which is otherwise a very nice thing to see outside your window, thought it was a moat. She agreed to talk as long as they didn't share her private medical history. My first feeling is doom, she said. This is the mentally ill teenager that has been committed to the hospital. This is somehow related to Donald Trump. I don't know how. Covenant Health, which runs the hospital, said it is proactive and thorough in approaching emergency planning, but they didn't want to give any details because I'm not sure why CBS should get any. It's one of 170 American hospitals, totaling nearly 30,000 patient beds from coast to coast that face great risk of significant or dangerous flooding, according to a KFF Health News investigation, which was provided using data from a company called Fathom, a company considered the leader in flood simulations. Oh, so they have a vested interest in showing their flood simulations because they sell those to people for insurance risk. Okay, much of the risk from these hospitals is not captured by flood maps issued by FEMA. Wait, so FEMA's maps are not good enough and a private company does it better? Isn't this an argument for shutdown? What does this have to do with Donald Trump? I don't know yet. We haven't found that part out. It's highly concerning, said Caleb Dresser, who studies climate change and is an emergency room. Wait a minute. Caleb Dresser studies climate change and is both an emergency room doctor and a Harvard University assistant professor. If you don't have the information to know you're at risk, how can you triage the problem? Well, that's a totally reasonable thing. But are there very many emergency room doctors that are also studiers of climate change? Like, what are we talking about here? And then it goes and talks about a flood that happened 20 years ago, which was in Katrina. Look, I've seen people deal with this problem. My buddies were residents down at UTMB, University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas, during a significant and massive hurricane. Do you know how they got to work? Because the streets were all flooded? In a kayak. Because my friends had kayaks. They were also fit and healthy people, so they straight up paddled their way in wearing board shorts, and then they changed out into their scrubs, and then they went to work. That happened after Katrina. It was totally doable, and nobody was refused. Somehow I don't understand why it's Donald Trump's fault, and I still can't figure it out. Here we go. The investigation, among the first to analyze nationwide hospital flooding risks in an era of warming climates and worsening storms, comes as the Trump administration has slashed federal agencies that forecast and respond to extreme weather, and also dismantled the FEMA programs designed to protect hospitals and other important buildings from floods. Are they sandbag programs? What are we talking about here? Seriously, what on God's green earth would the Trump administration do to stop the weather? This is what happens when you start thinking that the person that you elect to go be the president not only controls all the branches of government for some reason, even though they don't, but that there's some sort of like God-king emperor, that they're going to go out there and bestow rain upon the places that need it and stop the rain from the places that it ought not to. Americans, we are like every other people that have ever existed. We are so desperate for a king. We are so desperate to just outsource all of our grievances and let someone else take responsibility for it. And by the way, we're going to cede our civil liberties at the same time. The Democrats are worst about it. The people that are left of center agree that this is the right answer. The people that are the right are not always the right answer. And those of us that are conservatives are just sort of sitting on a hill going, all of you are dumb, shut it all down. And so today is a day of government shutdown, and I'm happy about it. I really am. I'm also happy about this because this was super funny that happened yesterday. Pete Hegseth railed against quote unquote woke, laid out standards in a speech to the top generals and admirals at Quantico yesterday, and it was pretty good. He said things that are so overtly normal for people that are warfighters or come from that culture that nobody that was a warfighter was mad. Nobody said, hey, I want weaker physical fitness standards and I need to have women that can't meet the standard. I think that we should have anybody that's not capable of being in the military be in the military. And so here was these little clips. I want to play a little taste of what that was. It was not met favorably by people on the left, which means I loved it. I really did. Here he goes.
Today, at my direction, each service will ensure that every requirement for every combat MOS, for every designated combat arms position, returns to the highest male standard only. Because this job is life or death. Standards must be met. And not just met, at every level, we should seek to exceed the standard, to push the...
Wait, you want people to be fit and meet the highest standard of whatever the job was when their lives are on the line? That seems ridiculous. That is not respectful. This Army staff sergeant has some thoughts. I don't know when this started, by the way, this TikTok trend where like ladies and men would get together in their cars and they would film themselves in uniform. But I thought you weren't supposed to be making public statements in uniform. I don't know why that's tolerated. I hope she actually gets removed from the job. I hope she has to go out and find a real job in the real world, because some people really don't belong in there. I had a very similar staff sergeant say something to me when I was actually getting out of the Air Force. And she was like, I have a desk job and I get to see my kids at night and I don't have to work on weekends. And I'm like, I didn't sign up for that. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I signed up to like put my life on the line. I thought it was supposed to be hard and difficult and not like a good source of income. I took an $80,000 pay cut to go be in the Army, or go be in the Air Force. I enlisted with an $80,000 pay cut to go make 18 grand a year at 27, 28, 29, and 30 years old, which were like peak income years, I would think, for a young person. I don't like these people being in the military and having a say, but I'm even more weirded out that they do so in uniform and that it's not punished. So hopefully this lady actually gets identified. Here she is, Staff Sergeant, Drill Sergeant, commanding so much respect from the troops, I'm sure, demanding that you respect her and be nice. And Karma is a woman, apparently.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today, I just wanted to come on here and tell you that if you're a leader, it doesn't, any type of leader, right?
Any type of leader.
You could be a drill sergeant like me.
You could be.
A section NCO, a platoon sergeant, a first sergeant. And if you think that you are going to have the capability to be disrespectful, to be malicious, to be spiteful with people's careers, with the people that work for you in general, Just remember, karma knows your name.
Oh, is that so?
And sooner or later, she's going to charge you. So
What do
treat
you mean?
people with kindness and respect.
You know what? It's a good point. That's what the military is all about. Treating people with kindness and respect. That's when I found I got the most useful results. Why is she like that? Who told her she could talk like that to people? Who listens to that? If you had a female drill sergeant like that, I swear, I'm telling you right now, I was 27 when I enlisted and I went to basic, and yeah, the Air Force is not all that aggressive. I thought the basic was a waste of my time. But if a woman started speaking like that, I might have just walked away. I have no interest. If you can't physically stop me, then I don't really care. I got a buddy who's a Green Beret. He's a reservist, or he's a guardsman in I think it's 19th group, maybe 20th group. Doesn't really make a difference. He said something to me that I'll never forget. I will never forget him saying this, because I was like, oh yeah, that's totally rational. That's how men think. Ladies, if you don't know this, this is how some men think. He said, is it weird, Kyle, that when I look at a man, I size them up and I value them based on how hard I think it would be to kill them? I was like, no, I'd never heard it put that way. But yeah, like that's how we look at it. It's like, could I take that guy? Do I have to respect that guy? Yeah, that's the answer. Should our generals not be in shape, fit warriors that lead from the front by being able to do basic PT? And if you're too sloppy, too fat, if that's offensive to your capabilities, if you are so weak and sloppy that you can no longer go out there and show the troops that you belong there too, why are you there? Like, there are some absolute studs. And whether you guys like him or not, I think there's plenty of bad things to be said about General Petraeus. One of the things that was like really studly about Petraeus, I knew a dude that was on his security detail, and he said that dude was a freak when it came to being running and fit. He could do pull-ups. He could run fast. His guys were constantly like pushed to the edge. He would have meetings with people where he would go out and run like a 6-minute mile pace and have a conversation with people. That's a stud. That's what should happen. Now, did he do some other shady stuff? For sure. It sounds like it. But if you do not have that ethos where you want to be part of a culture of excellence and physical fitness and making yourself more dangerous to the point where the actual warfighters that are going to be downrange look at you and say, yeah, you'd be hard to kill or harder to kill, so I can respect that, then maybe Pete Hegseth has a message for you. And I think this is the same message that should go for that staff sergeant.
But if the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign. We would thank you for your service. But I suspect, I know, the overwhelming majority of you feel the opposite. These words make your hearts full. You love the War Department because you love what you do, the profession of arms. You are hereby liberated to be an apolitical, hard-charging, no-nonsense, constitutional leader that you joined the military to be. We need you locked in on the M, not the D, the E, or the I, not the DEI or the DIE of dime. By that I mean the M, military, of the instruments of national power.
That seems like a super straightforward message. I thought that's what you would expect from a Secretary of War, Secretary of Defense. Like, go out there and do the mission set. You're supposed to hurt people and their feelings and break stuff. That's the entire thing. It's a projection of force. Why do we act like something else is going on here? That's crazy. And maybe it's because we got a lot of those like lady staff sergeants hanging out and putting their lady thoughts out there in the world. She could be on The View. Here's what The View had to say about the same thing.
I'm actually really befuddled by why he did that. The optics were terrible, meaning all of our top military brass are all in one place, and we spent $6 million to get them there. That didn't make a lot of sense to me. It also didn't make a lot of sense to me that he was saying that he was going to toughen physical standards and review the anti-hazing policy by sort of implementing a hazing policy. And then also he said he was going to return to the highest male standard for combat positions because the troops were fat. Like, yeah. I don't understand how that was supposed to be an uplifting message for our military.
Maybe he was referring to Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, it was really a bizarre thing. He started talking about woke DEI policies. By the way, there are no gender quotas in the military. By the way, he fired more than a dozen military leaders, many of them people of color and women. He fired the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Charles Brown Jr., who is African-American. Yeah. He fired the first woman to command the Navy, Admiral Lisa Franchetti. I don't understand the sort of hypocrisy of firing these people, having all these people meet together, and then denigrating them.
Did you look?
Welcome to the way that the military operates. We gather you all together and then we tell you that you are crap and you should be better. It's called motivation. It's really good for you. It works for men and people that want to work with men. And if you're a lady and you're offended, you are not the audience. Shocker. You didn't join the military there. Whatever her name is, Sunny Hoskin, whatever. I don't care. You're not part of it. You're not the audience. It was a bunch of dudes that got sloppy that actually remember, hey, 20, 30 years ago, I signed up to go do something difficult. Not to be some desk jockey, not to be some wimp, not to go out there and be a DEI hire, not to go out there and get promoted because of my skin color. It's not for you. You're not the audience. The audience is a bunch of hard-charging men and women who want to work with men, which we oftentimes don't like. And those standards should be the hardest thing possible. My buddy was part of one of the studies. He was a special operator with the Air Force, and he deployed with a bunch of Army units. And they did a study in the Air Force. The PhDs that ran the physical fitness programs went out there and grabbed a bunch of special operators, grabbed a bunch of regular enlisted guys from the Air Force. Now, granted, the Air Force is not the most physical thing, but they do have a lot of time to do PT. And there's plenty of studs in the Air Force, just like there is in any other population. And some of the most insane studs that I've ever seen came out of the Air Force. So just call it for what it is, right? There's PJs, there's combat controllers, there's TAC-Bs, and so on. And then they grabbed women. So random subset of women, physically fit, athletic women, physically fit, athletic dudes from general population, from the enlisted crowd, and then operators, the special operations guys. And then they put them through like 3 days worth of physical trials and all kinds of stuff, from dragging weights to climbing ropes to swimming to running to biking to hiking to carrying rucks to doing all the things you might have to go do. Moving things from one place to another, carrying sandbags and doing relays, all kinds of stuff, teamwork and so on. And guess what? There was a very clear striation. At the top, physical peak standards were the stud operators, what you'd expect, the people that had already committed themselves, with a few men sprinkled in there from the general sort of enlisted pool. Then you had the bulk group of men from the regular group of the enlisted, the general population men, with a few women sprinkled in that were studs. And below that, you had the women. It turns out it's kind of like biology. We've already done this. Do you know why we've done this? We've looked at it for thousands of years. And it turns out that men in a physical space operate in a way that women do not. And it's nothing against women. That doesn't mean that you're less than or you're not valuable as a person. It just means that this is not where you excel. Just like Kyle Seraphin at 5'8" is not going to be an NBA basketball player. I came to grips with that. I don't demand that there are more 5'8" and under 5'10" guys in the National Basketball Association because I don't give a shit. There are things that I can do that men that do basketball cannot. I used to go and do training that guys who had graduated from and been selected. We had dudes that went to the NFL, that went through the combine, and they couldn't do what I did. Fine. Like, we all excel at different things. And if you're going to be in the war fighter world, the standard should be really high because people's lives depend on it, it turns out. And if you don't hold up to it, so be it. There's nothing controversial about what that man just said. It's really crazy to me that was really upsetting. In any case, I promised you a little bit of this sort of fresh story. It's super fun. It's going to be a quick little piece here. So let's just hit it real quickly. Let's talk about Revolver News claiming yesterday afternoon that Julie Kelly has found new damning glitch information in the official pipe bomb story. Of course, we're talking about the J5, J6 pipe bomber who is still at large, despite Dan Bongino going on his podcast claiming he had a source in the FBI who knew exactly who it was. Where is that source at, Dan Bongino? And where is the pipe bomber, the person who did the single most terroristic act on that day? Nobody knows. All right. And what is it that she uncovered? She uncovered that in the official FBI interview, which I have here on the screen for you. This comes from the 176 Washington Field. I'm showing you right here on the screen. There it is. This is the intake form. This is essentially the typed up details which predicated an interview of the witness, this woman named Carlin Younger. This is what she sent in to what's called NTOC, the National Threat Operations Center, NTOC, which is out in West Virginia. And she reported a couple of days after January 6th that she was the one who notified law enforcement on the ground, and she wanted to make sure the FBI knew who she was. And so they went out there and they interviewed her. Now, the thing that they got really excited about was twofold. Part one was that she wasn't interviewed for a full week or close to a week after January 6th. Well, part of it is because she didn't self-report to NTALK until 1/8. So that would have been 2 days after. And then it takes a little while for her to get out to the field. And then she was finally interviewed. And so we see here that she was interviewed on the intake form at 1:15. So it took them a number of days to go get to her, 7 days after the reporting, which is not really that interesting to me, to be fair. The thing that Julie Kelly identified, and this is why she's so great, obviously, folks, is because she said the following in her intake form, which is clearly and most obviously going to be a fact that nobody can say otherwise. She reported herself, however, quote, I can confirm that the device must have been placed between 12 p.m. and 12:40 Eastern time because it was not present when I went down to start my laundry at 12 p.m., but it was present when I returned to continue the laundry at approximately 12:40. I would also like to report that I was walking to the area right before I found the device. I passed by a woman in front of the Capitol Club who stared at me suspiciously. That's it. That's the thing. Julie Kelly has cracked the case that the pipe bomb allegedly was placed on the day of January 6th between 12 and 12:40. And she says it because a woman who recognized something one time but not the other time, boom, now she's the winner. She is the definitive answer in this NTALK statement that she sent in. It's absurd. People don't recognize things. She didn't recognize it, so therefore it wasn't there. Or she can say definitively, I didn't see it the first time I passed. It may have been there. It may not have been there. And then I saw it the second time. And by the way, in this same statement, she says, I thought it was just trash. So maybe she ignored it the first time. You know, like when you're carrying laundry and you're not looking for a flipping bomb, maybe you didn't see the bomb. In any case, that leads us to this story, which Just the News did. And so they put it out. The thing that was very interesting in the Just the News story about the J6 bomber case was the thing that I've been saying out loud since, November of 2022? I've been saying this for 3 years now. The word viable is never used, which means that maybe Steve D'Antuono, who was the ADIC of the Washington field office where I worked at the time on January 6th, may not have been really all that versed on what was going on. And he was in congressional testimony claiming that he believes that the bomb was viable based on what people said. But the word viable is not being used in the actual report. And Kash Patel sent it off to a friendly source like John Solomon over at Just the News. And so they're reporting the bomb was not, in fact, viable. Stuff that is old news to people that listen to this podcast. That's the breaking story. I'm going to be going on, I think, with Alex Jones later to talk about this stuff. All of this is really silly. We're getting the bread and circuses routine, not just with the government shutdown, but with the way the government actually operates and the way that our law enforcement and our crying about the military being told they have to be fit. This is all distractionary. Again, it's show business for ugly people. We keep getting it. And we can't get away from it. So that's the nature of the world we live in. But we should at least dispense with they are doing all these things, as you guys said in the chat. That's exactly right. So many things are quote unquote fake and gay right now. They're fake for sure. And gay, like we used to say in the 80s, which is that we're irritated. I'm not entertained by this stuff. I'm really not. I'm bored, and I want them to do their jobs, and I want them to shut down and do like real conservatism and not have as much government. Instead, what we're going to get is Pfizer, which we'll talk about tomorrow, and cost cutting for things that we shouldn't be involved in. To say that this is a conservative administration is kind of absurd, which is why I continually get myself on the wrong side of all the teams. That's okay. I'm going to hang out with people that are like comedians that at least can laugh our way through this. All right, we're going to wrap it up today. I've got a palate cleanse for you that will make you smile from a guy named Ryan Long, who's a fantastic comedian. Before we do, make sure if you are still here watching, thumbs up on Rumble, thumbs up on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're watching. Like us over on X. Yes, I do see the chat. Some of you guys were asking that earlier. I occasionally see it, but I'm also reading stuff. And if you want to join us on Locals and support us either as a free member or financially get involved, it's kyleserafin.com. It's very easy to do. Let's do a palate cleanse, something we can all smile about. Here's Ryan Long talking about Tylenol and, liberal stuff. Stop yelling in our ears, ladies.
Pregnant women don't want to hear that you're not supposed to take Tylenol, honestly, because Trump said it. The other day, I saw a pregnant woman taking Tylenol, and I go, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. And she started yelling all this liberal shit at me like, I'm not pregnant. And stop asking me for milk. And so it turns out she was just fat, which RFK was supposed to fix that, too. And I've been going around the country, and he hasn't made a dent. you imagine being a kid in 10 years, autistic, and then you have to turn on... You're just watching a video of your mom being like, ah! You're just playing with your trains like, Mom, who's Trump?
There you go. So that's Ryan Long. You guys can go find him. He's on tour. It looks like he's going to Baltimore. He's going to Eugene, Oregon. That sounds terrible. New York. How about some American cities? You can go to Fort Worth or Dallas, and then you can go be a not American in San Francisco. Yeah, I like, if I didn't hate crowds, I would go watch stand-up comedians, except I've got little kids, so I don't have the ability to go and do that most of the time. Folks, like the show. Thanks for being with us. I'm going to continue to say he made a really good point. There's a reason why I chose that palate cleanse. I thought we were going to fix fatness. I thought we were going to make America healthy again. We sure as heck aren't going to do that. And we're sure as hell not going to do it by giving illegal aliens free health care. Right? Now, so maybe government isn't the solution. Cheer on the shutdown. Go give somebody a high five later on. Oh, I'll show you one last little thing. This is why. I saw this post on social media. If you guys want to find it on X, I will retweet this starting right now. This is a man who ran a septic pumping system. And when the government of the city that he was working in failed to do their job, they paid him $6,000 a week to make sure that his trucks continually pumped so that they did not have sewage run over. It turns out it is private industry that's going to save the day at the end of the day. They're going to pay for it the most expensive way possible, which is taxing you, putting it into an administration, then turning around and paying a guy who would have done the work in the first place. Look at him. And the interesting poignant point was the person who posted this said, "That's my dad. And we went by that moment, and my teachers said, this is why you stay in school. Meanwhile, that guy made as much in 6 weeks as that teacher made in a whole year. Because that's how it works out. Anyway, God bless you. God bless the people that keep our society running that are not part of the government, that are just doing real work. You know, real jobs. Not like what I'm doing right here. All right. I'll look forward to seeing you guys again on Thursday. Hopefully the government will still be shut down. Have a good rest of your day, y'all.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.